Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Elam Road podcast, where in today's show, we're going to be going over the 1-1 draw against Arsenal on Saturday evening. Apologies for the lateness of this episode. We had a few issues, timings-wise, calendar-wise, but we're recording it nonetheless Wednesday evening. I'm with Craig. Craig, how are we?
Yeah, very good. Bit of a different episode this week, just you and me, but I'm sure we'll get through it just fine.
Yeah, exactly. We always do. We always do, mate. Not a lot to talk about. We're going to get into the game itself.
Yeah.
But just before we do that, remember to drop a comment down below with your thoughts over the Arsenal game. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels. Follow us on the socials at the Ealing Road on Twitter, at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Tweet of the week this week, Craig. I picked out a couple. I bookmarked this one after some Match of the Day analysis. Alan Shearer and I believe it was Micah Richards on Match of the Day on Saturday did some analysis around Brentford and whether we're a better team without Ivan Toney, obviously with the focus on Yoane Wissa and Brian Mbeumo, who are now both on 15 goals. No, Yoane Wissa's on 15. Brian Mbeumo's on 16, I believe, which makes us the first team in the league to have two players with over 15 goals in the Premier League this season. But they were doing a bit of analysis, and they did a bit of analysis and basically said the top line from it was that Brentford are a better team without Ivan Toney. And I'm very aware that this is a conversation that we've had before on this podcast.
So many times.
But I feel like it may have changed a little bit, I think. And Rise BFC Ryan, who I think has featured on Twitter the week before, he said absolutely incorrect. A more fluid team, 100%. We had to adapt. Definitely not a better team, though. Thoughts, Craig?
Well, everybody knows what Ivan Toney brings to the team, and that is goals. And when you score 20 goals a season in the Premier League, you're going to be a hot commodity, which is what he was when he left. But he's right and wrong. I agree and disagree. We are more fluid. We have had to adapt. I don't think we're worse off. So maybe we are a little bit better, but maybe I think we're a bit better because the football's a little bit more easy on the eye. It's a bit more attractive football rather than just route one, get it up to Ivan Toney and let him do the work. But when he scores 20 goals a season, he's doing his job and we look like a better team that way. So yes and no. I agree and disagree. I wouldn't have said no to having Ivan Toney in the team this season. Let's just tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Igor Thiago was supposed to be the replacement and give us a bit more of a different dynamic, wasn't he? But I think I agree. I think yes or no. I think what Ivan Toney brought, and I feel like we touched on it a few times this season, those intangibles in terms of dragging us through a game at points. We've lost a lot of games this season by 1-goal margin. The most notable of which, obviously, my mind goes back to the Fulham game because that was horrendous. But, you know, if we have that outlet up top and it's not just constant pressure, and we've got someone who can win the ball high up the pitch and just take the sting out of games and just provide a bit of leadership in moments where maybe we've buckled a little bit this season, then I think Ivan Toney obviously has his usefulness or his utility. But I do think this season we've been playing a bit more attractive football. I do feel like we have been involved in some boring games, though, which I've not been a fan of. And we're going to talk about a boring game today. But just before we do that, another tweet that caught my eye and kind of some rumours that have been swirling about. I think Spurs have dropped their interest in Andoni Iraola was a story that I read earlier today. It looks like he's going to stay at Bournemouth, which, according to the Telegraph, makes Thomas Frank like quite high up on their list in terms of potential replacements for Postecoglou if he were to be replaced at the end of the season. Now, we're recording this on Wednesday, Craig. Spurs play tomorrow night in the Europa League, so their season could well and truly be done tomorrow evening. And to be honest, I'm pretty much expecting that to happen, considering they're only at 1-1 in that game. First of all, do you think he's going to be sacked, Postecoglou, even if they win the Europa League? Second of all, can you just tell me why it would be a complete fucking error from Thomas Frank to go to Spurs?
So it feels like the I'm sure it was the Jose Mourinho situation at United where he won the Europa League and then got sacked, didn't he, very quickly in the new season. So it feels very, very similar to that scenario. I mean, Europa League aside, you'd be incredibly surprised if Postecoglou is their manager come the start of next season. And prior to this, he was a serial winner, wasn't he? But I mean, with all due respect to the Scottish Premier League, it's not very difficult to fail, or it's not very difficult to succeed, as the Celtic manager. But the Premier League's just a whole different kettle of fish, and his style of play has come around to bite him in the arse again. if they win it, that's a different kettle of fish, because there's a possibility that the stupidity of Levy and the owners that they've got, they would try and keep him. But if he doesn't get the right investment in the summer, and then they're a bit pony again next season, he probably wouldn't last 5 games if they start really poorly. So I'll give him 5 games into next season if they win it. And Thomas Frank, I think it would be a daft move unless they win the Europa League. It would be a daft move unless they win the Europa League, because then he would be a Champions League manager. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, this year the Europa League winners go straight into the group or league phase of what the Champions League is now. So he would be a Champions League manager, which is a total different ball game, because to be going into maybe the Conference League or the Europa League as a step up from Brentford, yeah, fantastic. But to go then straight into the Champions League, that might be a little bit more enticing for Thomas Frank. But it's a club in a downward spiral as opposed to what we are moving forwards. It seems like a step in the wrong direction for his career.
I think with Thomas Frank links, first of all, the ones in London scare me more, because I feel like he's very much, whenever you hear him speak about where he lives and how much of a perfect job he's got at Brentford, I can imagine it's because his family are very settled wherever he lives in West London. And therefore jobs that are in London scare me a little bit. The Spurs one worries me because it's obviously that they're obviously a much bigger club than Brentford. If they were in the Champions League, it would make sense for him to do that. Because I do feel like that's the next step in his kind of career. If he kind of, and he's said it a few times before that he's pretty sure that he's not going to spend the rest of his career at Brentford. If he's going to leave, it would have to be for something bigger and better. Right now, if Spurs crash out the Europa League, I do think it would be probably a backward step. Whether they'll be challenging for Europe next season under a new manager, whether Levy gets the checkbook out, we don't know. He has, like, they have forked out quite a lot of money for Ange Postecoglou and some of the signings that he's made. But I don't know if you've seen like the comparative kind of spend on wages compared to the amount of revenue that clubs make. And Tottenham are right at the bottom of that list in terms of Premier League clubs. So there's a lack of ambition there. I just don't think Tottenham should be touched by any kind of manager until Levy and Enoch get out. I just feel like it's a poison chalice. And you're kind of seeing that with Ange Postecoglou over the last 2 seasons. But the London ones, I don't know. The London ones scare me a little bit. But I'm glad that the other 2 London clubs in question are Chelsea and Spurs, and both of them are fucking basket case.
Well, when we was talking about it last year, and before Enzo Maresca went to Chelsea, and there was a lot of talk of Thomas Frank going there, that was the one that all of us was like, oh God, it could actually happen. Chelsea could be the one. But no, he stuck it out. And Thomas Frank's not going to spend his entire career at Brentford. It's just not going to happen. Eventually, he's either going to outgrow us or we're going to outgrow him. That's just the natural progression of managers and football clubs. But the likelihood is he's going to move on to bigger and better being European football things. Spurs is not the option for him.
Yeah, no, it's so true. The other thing I hate, just before we move on, last thing on this, when people start, and it always, whenever there's rumours, people start talking about managers, they start talking about styles of play. I was listening to a Spurs podcast the other day, and they were saying Thomas Frank isn't one to work with young players. They don't really recruit young. And it's just like, do your research. Come on. Like, it's just like, ooh, just knocked my mic over there, but just do your research a little. It makes me angry, Craig. Just do your research a little bit. You look at the profile of players that we signed; they're all young.
It's a good job we didn't bring in, 19 Gustavo Nunes, Jaden Magoma, bringing Paris Magoma through.
I know.
Michael Kayode's only 22. Rico, when he came through, okay, that was pre-Thomas Frank, but there's so many young players that we've got.
I know. It's the people come out with sweeping statements. It just takes a little bit of reading just to get a little bit clued up. It just frustrates me a touch. Anyway, Arsenal, Craig, we've spoken about it a little bit already. Initial thoughts. I thought bar the second half, and obviously Wissa getting that goal, is a bit of a snooze fest, and I thought that was pretty predictable, to be honest.
I mean, sandwiched between 2 massive games for them, it was definitely not going to be as intense, for one, on the pitch, and for 2, off the pitch and in the stands, the atmosphere and things like that, as to what it would have been on Wednesday last week. And first things first, kudos to Arsenal, man. What a game that was to watch against Real Madrid, and I don't expect tonight to be any different. But there's a lot of hype around Real Madrid and playing at the Bernabeu and stuff like that. But that we'll all see that tonight. But yeah, sandwiched between those two games, amongst us not really having that push for Europe, it sort of lined up to be a bit of a dull game. It was an opportunity for us to go and get something from them, because we haven't won at the Emirates since like the night, or won against Arsenal at any stadium since the 1930s away. I mean, because obviously we beat them at home first game of the Premier League, and it was an opportunity to go there and win. But it's a different kettle of fish. When we played Spurs, it was an opportunity for us to beat Spurs because Spurs were beatable. When we just played Chelsea and we played them at good time, it was a good time for us to actually go and beat Chelsea at home. When you're playing against teams like Arsenal or Liverpool, you're not going there with the expectation of we can go there and beat them. You're going, as a Brentford fan, I feel like it's realistic to say, I'm going there to not lose this game. I think we could get something from this Arsenal game. And it was just so dull to the fact that that was inevitable from the first kick, I thought. But what I will say is, I did think we actually defended pretty well. It's just that's what the majority of the game was, just letting them have the ball, play it around us, and just see if we can keep them out and maybe catch them on the counter. And that's what happened.
I mean, yeah, we'll go through the chances kind of periodically in the game periodically, but it's exactly how arguably the best chance of the first half falls to us with Ayer on the overlap, which is the kind of joy that Kayode exploited in the second half to get the actual goal that equalised for us. But, you know, Ayer, and just on him in general, I think he's getting better game by game. A few weeks ago, I remember criticising him a little bit because he's looked a little bit slow, doesn't maybe tend to be as eager to bomb forward, but it comes from an overlap. He gets the wrong side of Gabriel Martinelli, and I think he has to do better with the finish. I think he goes a little bit safe and tries to just side foot it into the corner. And I think if he puts his foot through it with a bit of power, then it gives Reyes some problems.
Yeah.
But just on Ayer in particular, I thought he was really, really good against Arsenal. Probably, I would say, one of our best, if not our best player on the day. We're going to talk about the man that replaced him a lot, but it was a good performance from him, I thought.
Yeah, it's consistency in minutes, isn't it? It's consistency in minutes. Yeah, when you get injuries, little niggly injuries that he's had throughout his entire Brentford career, he doesn't have that string of games necessarily under his belt that he got at Celtic and things like that. And now he's having a run of games in the team. He's becoming more free. He's becoming fitter. You know, his minutes are getting more and more. He's becoming more fit, which is obviously difficult for Kayode as well. But it's a good headache for Thomas Frank to have that one. But yeah, I think that he should have done a lot better. He obviously, we're calling it an overlap, but let's be real, he just ran straight through the middle. And straight through the middle into the penalty area. And yeah, I mean, if you want that chance to fall to someone, you want it to be one of your forwards and not necessarily a bombing forward right back. But you know, it's a chance that we created, and it proved that we could hurt them on the counter as well.
The red card came afterwards, Craig. What did you think of it? Arteta went a bit crazy on the touchline. Arsenal fans were moaning about it quite a bit after the match, during the match. Arsenal players as well in the post-match. Gabriel Martinelli said he could have broken his leg. Where are you on that? Because it is a bit of a flashpoint. We should talk about it.
Yeah, well, for starters, it wasn't a red card. Let's just put that out there for what you just said.
The incident,
the red card incident. I love it. I know I love it purely for. I don't love it because he could have really hurt him. Martinelli is right; he could have really hurt him. But I love it because Brentford did the football shirt Friday thing, didn't they? And he turns up to a game. Turns up in a Real Madrid shirt. Turns up on a football shirt Friday and a Real Madrid shirt. And then sandwiched between two Real Madrid games, he goes in for a proper ankle breaker on Martinelli. It was just, everything just came full circle in that moment, and I thought it was really amusing. What I will say is we've seen them given for red cards. Norgaard probably count himself quite lucky, and on another day he might have been sent off for it. But then again, we've had some very strange decisions go in our favour, are red cards. I mean, look at Frank Onyeka last season away at Sheffield United. That should have been a red card, and I don't know. Another day, maybe Norgaard would have been sent off, but the whole Real Madrid shirt, sandwiched between two Real Madrid games, I just thought it was funny when it happened.
It's perfect. To be fair, now I'm thinking about it, I think we're owed one this season in terms of getting away with it. because in another 0-0, another draw, sorry, the João Pedro one, when he literally just elbows.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that was not a red card.
So I thought he was talking about the Norgaard sending off at Everton when he got sent off at Everton.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. So we drew 2. We got one more in the bank.
I got one more in the bank. There we go.
But yeah, no, I think if that was Anthony Taylor, I think he's quite card happy, isn't he? He's one that dishes out the cards quite frequently. I think if that was a different ref on a different day, he could have been gone for that. But I do think it was a genuine attempt to play the ball.
Yeah.
So we'll move on from that. Second half, their goal comes from our corner, which I thought just the way it happened, it was just exactly like how we conceded against Liverpool on the second day of the season. Fast counter. But what stood out for me was just David Raya coming out, collecting that cross, and immediately you see the Arsenal runners, they just go and go and go. I'm not sure if... I don't want to criticise that goal too heavily because I think we just got countered just extremely efficiently by a very good team. And just Declan Rice, when he picks up the ball, he's just so athletic when he's running with it. He's just galloping like a horse. It was ridiculous how quickly he ate up that ground. Any thoughts on that goal? Could we have defended better, do you think?
I've got 2 concerns with it. One of them is not with the actual goal, it's with the fans, but we'll talk about that after. The second one is I feel like we took a huge risk in not at least putting a challenge in on Declan Rice while he's in their half for starters.
Because I think Damsgaard's the one that misses the tackle, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, Damsgaard's the one that misses the tackle, but then Wissa does fantastic defensive work, and he is the one closest to Partey when he scores. But he runs past Declan Rice to do the defensive work, and then does not track the run of Partey, nor does he try and block a pass from Declan Rice. It's another one of those situations where, okay, maybe we haven't necessarily allowed it this time, but a player has picked the ball up and then travelled 60, 70 yards up the pitch, pulled their team forward. The second one is, after we conceded that goal, fickle football fans on social media immediately blame, lo and behold, the goalkeeper. How, in God's name, do you blame a goalkeeper for letting a player run 60 yards and then conceding a one-on-one effort? People saying he got beaten at his near post. Getting beaten at your near post is a myth in football. Get rid of it. It does not exist. That was not the goalkeeper's fault, and we could have stopped him further up the pitch, but we also got countered by a fluid, fantastic Arsenal team.
I just thought it was a good finish as well. Like, he lifts it. It's like, it's not the typical finish that you would go for. If anything, I would have, because Flecken, if anything, if Flecken dived to the right, he actually stood still and probably did the right thing, gave him a better chance of saving the ball.
Yeah.
But if he dived to his right to cut across goal, which is probably the finish that most players would have gone for, I just thought it was a good finish. I didn't know there was people blaming Flecken for that. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We need to get over this the Flecken slander, because he's been really good this season. But yeah, no, that's no way in hell is that Flecken's fault. We'll talk about our goal, because I actually think the better chance came from the corner that actually led to the goal when we went kind of on a counter and Damsgaard was like in acres of space near the penalty spot. Thankfully, he didn't pass, because I do feel like Damsgaard may have bottled that chance, because as we've spoken about over the last 2 episodes, he's not great in front of goal. But what I liked about it, Craig, was first of all, Yarmo keeping the ball alive on the edge of the D. I love the fact that he swivels and his first thought is to actually get it back out wide. Yeah. Second of all, Kayode, because he comes on before the goal even, he comes on, and I've said before, I've not really seen much or enough of him to kind of warrant the campaigning that I've seen for him to start week in, week out, because he's come on and he's looked in spells quite good. But there is just, I don't know, there's just something a bit unconventional about him that I can't put my finger on, really. But he, first of all, shut Martinelli out of the game pretty much full stop as soon as he came on. He didn't have a sniff after Kayode came on. And then his willingness to get on that overlap was so impressive. And what wasn't impressive was Arsenal's defending, not Martinelli for the goal, because they basically just allow him to run straight into the box. But the delivery, Craig, the delivery was exactly what we needed, and something that we hadn't been doing throughout the game so far, because every single cross we pumped into the box was just David Raya would come out, and we know what he's good at. He comes out and he commands his area and he picks the ball up. But the delivery was what impressed me. And another great finish from Wissa. But yeah, how did you view that goal? was good.
What gets me is the way that Arsenal defend one-on-one situations when the ball is out wide, because the chance that I had in the first half again comes from Tierney defending one-on-one with Brian on that left-hand side or the right-hand side, depending on which way you want to look at it, and I am making a run into space. And then again, I think it's Tierney or Martinelli that's putting pressure on Brian and not being backed up by anyone.
Yeah.
Which then, as you said, leaves Michael Kayode in acres and acres of space to put a great ball across goal. I did think that we got quite fortunate, I will say. I thought that was a little bit deeper of a ball than what it necessarily needed to be, but he's moving at pace. You know, he's got the momentum of it. That's why the ball is lifted as well. But he did that a couple of times when he came on, Kayode. He did that a couple of times when he came on. But, I mean, it's a great finish as well. Over his shoulder, hooks it over his shoulder. But I feel like as a Brentford fan at Arsenal, you're waiting for VAR to get involved and then give a suspected offside goal anyway. So that would have been even funnier. But yeah, he's just so good. The problem is we've just said Aya's been really good.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question to you. Does he start against Brighton?
He has to,
because there's a lot of people saying that he should.
He has to start eventually, doesn't he? And if he's fit enough to start, yeah, maybe give him an opportunity to. I think we've got 6 games left of the season. Mm-hmm. He's got to start eventually, and we know that Christopher Aya can come on as a centre back as well if need be. So he has that versatility in his pocket where he can come on as a right back, as a centre back, and deal with what he's got to deal with there, Chris Aya. But I mean, at this point of the season, when you're not going down, you're not necessarily going to finish in Europe. What do you have to lose by taking a risk on a player like Michael Kayode and starting him? I say that because it doesn't even seem like a risk. It seems like a smart decision in what we've seen in the glimpses of him. But this wasn't just a glimpse. It was a 20-25 minute cameo from Michael Kayode in which he impressed.
Changed the game. Changed the game.
Yeah,
I'd go as far as say completely changed the game because he just injected so much energy down that right-hand side, shut them down offensively, and just opened up so many new avenues for us going forward as well. I thought it was so good from him.
What I also want to talk about in the last 2 games, I know that the Chelsea game wasn't fantastic, and I don't think we've had a game between Arsenal and Chelsea. Have we? Were they last 2 games?
I'm not sure.
I feel like they were. Anyhow, how good of a centre-back partnership is Sepp and Nathan Collins? How good is that partnership? It was great up until Sepp got injured or was out for a little bit, and Ethan Pinnock came back in. But the two of them together, they just work. That is the centre-back partnership we need to see next season as well. They're both young players. They're both, they're not inexperienced players. Okay, Sepp more than Nathan Collins is. But Collins has got such an old head on a young pair of shoulders, and he is fantastic. And I will argue that if he sticks around for long enough, he will be our captain, which I think we've spoken about before anyway. But, all right, I'll turn this around. You asked me, what's your back four then for Brighton?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Kayode does. Realistically, I don't think he'll start because I think Thomas Frank knows that he's coming back from a bit of an injury. Yes, it was a great cameo, but it was only 25 minutes. Realistically, what I'd like to think is that if he doesn't start, he gets more minutes than he got against Arsenal, i.e. 25. I'd like to think that he gets 35 to 30. But, in terms of what we saw in that last 25 minutes, I just thought... Even though Aya was very, very good and probably his best game since he's come back from injury, I just thought what Kayode offered was everything and more. Do you know what I mean? Because it was more attacking and it was as good defensively as Aya had been in the game already. So yeah, it's a difficult one. Let us know in the comment section down below because I think that this is a debate and Michael Kayode has gotten all of his flowers over the last kind of week or so from what seems like every Brentford fan. But let us know in the comments whether he starts against Brighton and does that shift Aya out onto the bench? Does it shift him into centre half? We don't really want to break up that partnership that Craig's just been talking about. But let us know in the comments whether Michael Kayode should start against Brighton. I just want to say quickly the celebrations. Did you notice that 4K camera in the corner?
Yeah. I thought that was amazing. Brilliant. Yeah,
it was great just to get the Wissa's celebration. Kayode, big old jump in front of the away end. I thought that was class.
He loves it.
My heart did fall out of my arse when Saka cut in down from the right towards the end of the game because I thought that I was about to nestle in the in the left-hand corner. The one thing I would say, right, and I'm going to stay true to myself because I put in the chat as soon as the full-time whistle went, I was pissed off because I thought the game, it wasn't there for us to take, but I just thought we could have done a little bit more in that final 5 to just kind of push them a little bit because it just felt like Jensen was strolling about the pitch. We weren't pumping it forward. Do you know what I mean? I was just a little bit...
Not even in the final 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, or I'm sure someone will in the comments. For like the last 10 to 15 minutes, they was down to 10 players. They'd used all their substitutes. And we was 11v10. It was like they'd had a red card at that point. But we didn't. Like you say, we was just strolling around the pitch. And what really bugged me was the last play of the game. We had the ball in and around their penalty area and played it out. And Jensen was just basically 1-2 in it with Yarmo in the middle, and the referee blows the final whistle. And it's like, oh, Jesus, man, we got an opportunity.
I looked at the players' reactions when we had the ball in that last spell, just before the ref blew the whistle, and Brian straight away was just like hands in the air like that, saying, "What are we doing?" But I don't know if I'm being harsh with that. I just felt like, obviously, with them being down to 10, I just thought there might have been a little bit more zip in our passing, a little bit more urgency to try and get a win that could have given us a little bit of momentum. There was a comment on our last YouTube video that said Arsenal's make or break. I actually thought it's gone before then in terms of maybe finishing in the European places. I think it, like, on the surface is a good point, but we said the same thing about Chelsea. On the surface, that's a good point, when I feel like Chelsea was an opportunity missed, really. But it was just, I just feel like there could have been a bit more urgency. Again, let us know in the comments if we're being harsh. The other thing I think we should mention before we talk about Brighton quickly, Craig, is that Gustavo Nunes made his Brentford debut in April with 6 games left to go from the season.
Exists.
Just really good to see him on the pitch, I thought. He didn't really, I don't think he touched the ball once, so maybe he got 1 touch on the ball, but you know, it's been a long time coming for him, a lot of time on the sidelines, and just nice to see him in a Brentford shirt on the pitch, and no bigger stage for him to make his debut away at Arsenal.
Away at Arsenal, absolutely. I mean, I don't think he's really too fussed about how many touches he got in that spell that he was on the pitch. I think that he was just so happy to be on the pitch, and as Brentford fans, I hope that we all appreciate the journey that he himself has been on since he's been here. Gets injured or is injured when he arrives, and things just go from bad to worse for him. But hopefully, it's a sign of things to come. We'll get Rico back to full fitness, Hickey back soon, Thiago back soon. Maybe Josh De Silva rises from the dead like the Undertaker, and you know, we might be lucky come the start of next season, pre-season, people can get injured again.
Yeah. Any other players you want to talk about, or anything else you want to talk about from the Arsenal game before we move on?
Nah, I think I'm happy there. I personally think that's a very good point for us. You know,
I do as well.
To go to the Emirates after a game where they're on such a high as well, and not smashing Real Madrid 3-0. Does that by like transfer of properties stuff mean that we would beat Real Madrid 3-0?
It can if you want, Craig.
Yeah, sure.
Right, let's talk about Brighton then. Next game coming up. I'm going to pull the table up for those who are watching on YouTube as well, just so we can have a look. I don't know why. I just think a win on Saturday would just obviously get that kind of talk back up again. If you look at where we are on the table, we're currently 11th. We played Brighton, who are just ahead of us on 48. We're on 43. So a win could take us to within 2 points of Brighton, 2 points of 10th, 2 points of 9th, depending on Fulham result. But I do feel like, obviously, the optimum result for us from Fulham and Bournemouth's game on Monday night would have been a draw. However, when you look at what Fulham did the previous week against Liverpool, and you look at the form that Bournemouth have been in over the last, well, what seems like since kind of January time, they've only picked up a win here or there.
Yeah.
I thought it was probably, you know, a Fulham win would have been worse than a Bournemouth win, considering Bournemouth's form.
Yeah.
Brighton have not been in great form recently. How are you feeling ahead of it? And just a quick one on the repercussions as well. Dan's not here, so we've not got the pessimist. If we do win, Craig, are we in a European race again?
I don't know what to say to that. I really don't know what to say.
I don't know what's changed for me to even ask that question, to be honest, but I'm just going to ask it anyway, because I know that on Saturday, if we beat Brighton, I will be saying we're in a European race again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just going to quickly Google our fixtures just so I can have a little flick through as well, because
the fixtures are tough. The fixtures are tough.
I know our fixtures are tough. As you know, we got that the last 3 games, including Fulham at home, are where we should be looking to pick up maximum points. Well, maybe even United at home, because I would love to say that it is back on, especially considering Fulham have got to play Chelsea this weekend, and then they're away to Villa, and then they're away to us, and they're at home to Man City on the final day. You know, they've got big games to play, and I mean, if we win and results go our way this weekend with Chelsea picking up points for us, I mean, who have Bournemouth got this weekend?
I'm not sure. I'll check now. But I think what actually stands out is that it's now a race for that 8th position. Bournemouth have got Palace.
Palace
so the
away.
Team behind us, Palace away.
I mean, we could get good results for us this weekend. I mean, let's say Bournemouth go to Palace and they don't win, and they pick up a point and they go to 49. Fulham are at home to Chelsea and they don't win, and they're up to 49. If we win, we're up to 46 points, and it's 3 points, and we've got to play Fulham at home as well. Damn it, shit. Are we in a European race?
We could be. But what I want to talk about at this table is that it is now, it was a race for Europe, I feel like, about 5 or 6 games ago. Yeah. Now you're seeing the teams start to pull away in terms of Champions League. So Forest on 57, down to Villa in 7th on 54. That's the Champions League race now, isn't it? Yeah. These you could argue these 5 teams, and I'm putting us there because we play Brighton on Saturday, and that is the crunch game, really. But from Bournemouth to Fulham to Brighton to Brentford to Palace, that is now a race for 8th, isn't it? Really, yeah, I don't think anyone's going to catch Villa and Chelsea and City and Newcastle and Forest now, unless they put just some mental run together. But it is a race to 8th.
Absolutely, it is. But isn't there still options where even 9th goes down, 9th and maybe
11th? It could go as far as no, because Villa. Bournemouth. Now, because Villa are out of the Champions League, is it different now? I think.
Well, I don't know, because if Spurs or United win the Europa League, we get 5 Champions League places. And if Chelsea win the Conference League, we'll get 2 Europa League places. Plus, then we'll get the normal Conference League. And who won the League Cup?
Newcastle.
And Newcastle possibly gets Champions League. So doesn't that go down to the next best place finishing? So it's like down to 9th, possibly. That could still get it. But yeah, what I would find it so amusing if Forest finished 7th after being in the Champions League places more or less all season, to then fall out on like the last day. I would find that so funny. I mean, credit to them, man. What a season. They're having the hell of a season. And it just goes to show that with the right investment, anybody could have the season that they've having. Brighton did it the other season. Okay, Fulham did it years ago when they went into Europe. But yeah, it just goes to show with the right investment and with the right squad, it could happen to anyone. Villa finishing in the Champions League. But yeah, man, God, if they finished if 5 teams go to Europe and they finish Champions League and they finish 6th,
that would be brilliant. That would be hilarious. So funny. We've still got Forest to play as well. I think the only thing I think Saturday is a must. I think in terms of like a final straw, the final roll of the dice, it is Saturday. If we draw against Brighton, I don't think it's enough. We have to get 3 points to even stay within that conversation of could we. How are you feeling about Brighton? I mean, just looking at their games, I didn't realize how many games they've drawn this season. They've only lost 8 times. They've drawn 12 games this season. That's nuts.
That's a crazy amount. And I think that literally only like Newcastle in the top 4 and maybe some of the bottom 3 have drawn less games than what we've drawn this season. So just looking at your table, just scroll down to the relegation zone. Well, for those that are listening, we're looking at the table anyway. I mean that only Leicester, Southampton, and Newcastle, and Spurs, and Wolves more and more are appearing. The bottom, there's only like 5 teams that have drawn less games than what we've drawn. And looking at Brighton, I don't know necessarily how their fixture have. Weren't they 2-0 up against Leicester, or was that 2-1?
No, it was. I think it was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. I think I want to say. I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, Leicester hadn't scored since January before playing Brighton, and they scored 2 against them. They hadn't picked up a point since January either. So, you know, I think it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have been billing it as a must win. I do think it is a must win.
Yeah.
I just for some reason I just do think it's got draw. We've still not won at home since December, have we?
No,
We've still not won at home since December.
We've not won at home since December. And I think the only away game that they've won this year, well, 2, is United away and Southampton away. Someone may correct me on that one as well. But it's a team that doesn't seem to have a fantastic away record at the moment versus a team that cannot, for love nor money, win at home. Like, this has got another 0-0 written all over it, hasn't it? Like, it's got another 0-0 written all over it. Do you know what? Let's say this is going to be the one. I do think it's a good opportunity. I said that for the Chelsea game as well, and I'm sure I said it before that for so many games at home this calendar year. But it really changes the whole dynamic of things, especially if other results go our way with Fulham and Bournemouth not picking up maximum points. It completely changes the whole dynamic of the run-in. And why not? Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
See, look at the fun that we have when Dan's not on the podcast, when he's not being so sensible all the time.
How dare he?
Someone in the GPG labelled him the sensible one the other day, and I was rolling on the floor laughing because it was so funny. Because it's so true. Dan, if you're listening, mate, fuck you. We get in Europe. If we beat Brighton on Saturday, it's back on. And I think that's a good way to round off the podcast, Craig. What do you think?
Do you know what, Callum? Just for the sake of it, fuck you too.
The Ealing Road podcast will be back for a full-time show after the Brighton game. Just before you go, remember to comment down below with your thoughts over the Arsenal game. Do you think Kayode should start against Brighton? How are you feeling ahead of the Brighton game? Has it got a 0-0 written all over it like Craig just said? Let us know in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels. Follow us on the socials. At the Ealing Road on Twitter. At Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Up the bees.